Okay, well, I've waited 20 seconds. Seems like I start out a lot of my live streams this way. Hey, it's Sunday morning, the 26th of November, 2023, and I don't normally come on Sunday mornings, very rarely on Sundays at all. Good, I'm glad I'm up. Thank you for all of you letting me know, and welcome as you come in. Thank you so much. Keo Ray, 5 by 5 thank you, thank you. Monica, thank you. All of you, hello. I'm glad to see you. I know it's been a few days. I think I did my last upload when I was out at a dinner party on Tuesday night at what's called a Braza Grill. And I showed you a little bit of that. I didn't show you the restaurant or anything like that, but it's one of those Brazilian grills where they bring you, your food, but it's still kind of a buffet kind of situation, and we had a very nice group, probably of about 15 people there. Had a good time. It was uh, for a lot of good reasons. Anyway, I've had a little banter over on Twitter X for the last few days, and I finally decided this morning that this is something that I should put on YouTube. Now, this is going to disturb a lot of the PC people, a lot of the women's lib people, a lot of the other type of uh, groups, I guess you would call it. But I feel a necessity to bring this information to you. It's not going to be totally, with all the information, it's not going to be exhaustive. I'm just going to present a few things, of course, from the Bible at this point. But those of you who aren't into spiritual things, you still need to listen to this because it has to do with Israel not being the Israel, ancient Israel, brought back today, restored, redivivus, or whatever. It's not. And the things that are going on over there, and I'm not taking sides on this. Both sides are wrong, and I've said that before. The wicked will destroy the wicked. This whole thing that's going on over there, and in Ukraine, of course, uh, are wrong. Okay, it's destroying a lot of innocent people's lives, and others are excusing themselves on what amounts to mass murder or even genocide by saying, well, the other side did it and we need to stop them. And all, I mean, it's just out of control. Women and children being slaughtered by the hundreds and thousands, hundreds and thousands. I don't mean hundreds of thousands. I have long talked about the evil of placing women in the military. Today, it's a big PC thing. The recruiting is targeting women in particular. You see it in the Western societies in the United States, but you really see it in Israel. And just over the last couple of days, you may have remembered that the slaughter in those kibbutzes just outside of the Gaza Strip, outside of the wall. It's a concentration camp. That's exactly what it is. Uh, the slaughter that took place there, that was conducted by Hamas, some people, I won't mention names here on this one, call it a military operation, and in most regards it was. But when you go shooting unarmed women who are fleeing for their lives and children, it's not just a military operation. It turns into a terrorist operation, and so it had characteristics of both a military and a terrorist situation here, operation, and that's wrong. Men that can, or anybody that conducts themselves in that manner, they're not soldiers. They are terrorists and they are criminals. I want to make that absolutely clear, that you know what my mind is on this. So, I mean, there can be arguments on both sides of that. I don't really care. You shoot an unarmed woman or child who's fleeing for their lives or begging for their lives, you're a coward and you're a criminal and you're a terrorist. Bottom line. I don't care what side you're on. There was a video the other day showing an Israeli sniper shooting a man, and then they were shooting at people who tried to come and help the man. That's a war crime. Okay, you have an injury, a wounded person. You need to provide them with assistance, and the other people were not a threat, and yet the Israeli sniper was shooting people or shooting at people as they came to try to help this wounded man. I suspect that he died. He was a Palestinian, of course. So each side wants to talk about the the crimes of the other, and that goes on in Ukraine too. You hear the Ukrainians saying one thing, the Russians saying another. When you go after innocent people, you're a criminal. You're violating the Geneva Conventions. Even if you're not a member, you're still violating the basics of human decency and the respect for life. Okay, so I just want everybody to understand where I am on this. Okay, all right. So the other day, I saw a clip coming out of it was a news channel in Israel, really pushing this idea of women in the military. Now they've been doing that for a long time. In Israel, women are subject to conscription as well. The rabbinate there tried to make it so that they weren't in combat roles, but the government doesn't care. They're going to push for that. They'll give a little on that, and I'm not going to get into the details, but the point is that they're putting their women in harm's way, not just because they might be attacked from rockets and stuff as a citizen there, but actually putting them in uniform and having them in these units. Well, there was apparently a tank platoon is what it looked like to me. There were 3 tanks, Merkava tanks, that were called up during this whole thing on October 7th. They were all female crews. And frankly, I was looking at this thing, this interview that was going on. No, I'm not going to put it up for you. Maybe you can find it if you go look for it. It's definitely available on X, but I'm not going to bring that out because there are probably some other problems with me bringing that out, copyright and some other things. But at any rate, they were interviewing these tankers. It was a joke. I mean, these women, they're not all there in the first place. I mean, if you listen to the interviews, you're going, what in the world is this? Well, what they admitted during that it was a propaganda piece. It was a cover your ass piece because of all of the Israeli civilians, unarmed civilians that were killed by the IDF when they employed their Hannibal directive, which is if you have Israeli citizen hostages and terrorists, you just kill everybody. You don't try to go in there and save the hostages, you just kill everybody. I'm not going to argue the pros and cons of that, other than to say it's cowardice and it's wrong. But at any rate, so we knew about this situation where it hadn't been Hamas. They could say, well, Hamas caused it because, they invaded and that was the response, so they're ultimately responsible. Well, if that's the case, then you can go back to the whole thing about Israel coming in, the Israelis, the Jews, coming into the Palestine area there and causing this whole problem back in 1947-48 anyway. I mean, the blame game is just ridiculous. So at any rate, getting back to this situation, we know that these tank crews, because Hamas didn't have the ability. Yeah, they had RPGs and things like that, but you can't take out the types of buildings with RPGs the way this happened. It was obviously something much bigger. Obviously, tank rounds, obviously, is what it was. And of course, Apache helicopters destroyed all those vehicles and killed all those Israelis when the Apache helicopter was just shooting at supposedly, at terrorists. But then again, the Hannibal directive, they just shot and killed everybody. It didn't matter. So a lot of those, I would say at least a quarter, maybe a half of the people, Israelis and people, unarmed people that weren't part of the military that were killed by Israeli fire. I'm not saying there weren't summary executions like I just pointed out. There was a video I saw where some Hamas people were chasing these women and shot them point blank range. They were unarmed, just begging to be left alone. That's criminal. That's terrorism. We should go after those people that did that and take care of business. Okay, I'll just put it that way. Getting back on the tank thing. So these tanks fired on these homes and things, both using machine guns and their main gun, and killed a lot of innocent people. We kind of knew about it, and then finally it came out that the Israelis were admitting that, yeah, the Apache helicopters did this, and yeah, the civilians were killed by friendly fire. They tried to put it that way. No, this was deliberate slaughter of everybody, so they didn't have to deal with the operation to try to isolate the terrorists, the Hamas, let's put it that way, to isolate them and then to work to get the hostages out at that point. This was no intelligence failure. This was exactly how Netanyahu and those people wanted this to work out so that they could go and take over the area there, Gaza, for the gas reserves, and also to open more settlements. You see how this works. All right? Anyway, so these female tank crews, basically, their commander was a guy. I think he was either a major or lieutenant colonel. I'm not sure which. Couldn't quite tell because of the way the uniforms were being worn. But at any rate, he was praising how women were in a tank battle for the first time in history. This was no damn tank battle. This was a slaughter by tanks against basically people with, at the most, small arms. Okay? But they tried to work it up. So again, they're trying to justify this thing about putting women in harm's way. All right? If you followed me for any length of time, you'll know that I'm against that at all levels. And people call me a sexist and a misogynist. No, I'm trying to protect women, and men are supposed to do that. Okay, that's what we're supposed to do. But at any rate, so these female crew members basically admitted that they had done this murder, which is what it was. If you can find that, you probably ought to go look at it. This speaks volumes about a number of issues, which I'm not going to get into here because I want to go somewhere else. It kind of touches on it, but not quite. Okay? A lady by the name of, well, first of all, there was this X post about women in the Israeli army and all these different things that they're doing. And one of my followers, and I follow her as well, her name's Julianne, she made a comment about how wrong it is for women to be in combat for all sorts of reasons, okay? I won't get into that. But I saw that, and I just had to respond to it. And I'm going to read you my response to that. And I sent this. If you followed me here, you know that I've tried to make contact with the MOD of Israel, that's the Ministry of Defense, IDF, the chief rabbinate there in Israel, different rabbis speaking on these issues that I have confronted on their pushing these violations of Torah. They claim to be the restored Israel and all that, but they don't. Israel doesn't even follow Torah, and a lot of these people don't either, because of the way they're pumping this thing up there in the Middle East. I'm approaching this from a biblical Torah perspective, well, Tanakh perspective this morning, because they're trying to justify what they're doing by calling out cherem. Again, that's total annihilation of your enemy, men, women, and children, everything, which was only specifically done on certain circumstances. And we've had rabbis and Israeli leaders and even Christian, I'll just say it, Zionists come out and say, yes, it's okay because they were trying to destroy Israel, and the Bible says to kill men, women, and children and destroy everybody. Well, first of all, I don't believe that, especially the way it's been employed today, or even in the Torah or in the Tanakh. There are problems with that entire story. I'm not going to get into that, but it's reprehensible and it's evil. Did God change his mind when he said, Lo ratzak? You can't kill the innocent. And then you try to explain, well, the innocent, they're not really innocent. They voted in the government. And I've pointed out, well, we voted in our government. Are all Americans responsible for the crimes that we committed in Iraq and Afghanistan, Africa, South America? You want to take that? It goes both ways. We can't control our governments. As hard as we try, we can't. Look at the force that's placed on the people to bow down to the government decisions. Conscription is evil. The draft. Because that's your last stand to say, I don't agree with what we're doing, our vote. That's a vote. When you say, no, I'm not going to serve this country because it's evil, it's doing wrong, that's a vote saying you don't go along with it. And conscription is evil. As a military officer, and I still feel that way. So I've talked about this for a long time. Most of you who have followed me know that. So let me read you my response on this issue. It is on my X account, at Royston Potter. If you follow me on X, formerly Twitter, you'll find this. I'm going to read through it, and then I'll give you some of the references to some of the points. This is not an exhaustive study on this. I don't want to bore you. The the mind can only absorb what the seat can endure. I'm a firm believer in that, and yet I still go over an hour on some of these things, sometimes two. But let me read this to you, okay? It's very important, I think, because I'm tired of the state of Israel claiming that it's the ancient Israel restored, that they're the chosen people, and that they can do these things because they've got to protect themselves, and they've got to take the land back that God gave them 3,500 years ago, and that they lost it because of their disobedience, according to their own writings and their own prophets. But that's another issue altogether. So let me get back to this thing. When Israel, if they claim to be Torah observant, if they claim to be Israel restored or Israel redivivus, as I call it, if they're going to say they do things by Torah, they better damn well do it by Torah, and they are not. There are certain things that they violate in Torah wholeheartedly. This is one. And another thing that they do is they actually make it illegal to do certain things that the Torah calls for. Now, I'm not saying that I'm Torah observant. That's not what I'm saying. And I'm not saying that I believe that we all have to follow that, okay? I'm not saying that. I'm saying they claim it. Therefore, they are duty bound to conduct themselves according to what they say they are. And they are not. I get so sick and tired of these people that, they want to come at the Muslims, rightfully so, because of the extremists in Islam. But they totally forget that even though they'll say Islam is a religion or a political movement disguised as a religion, and they want to take over the world, they conveniently forget that in the Jewish Torah and the Tanakh it says the same thing, and especially in Zionism, which you don't even have to be Jewish to belong to, right? What's going on in Israel with this thing forcing women to, if women want to do it, I guess there's an issue there. I would still prohibit them from going in the military for a lot of reasons. I saw it. I was there. My unit in the Army was one of the first ones to get women in back in the 70s. And what a freaking nightmare. Oh, a few of them could do the job. I'm not saying that isn't the case. But by and large, it caused more problems than it resolved. And the DOD won't admit it. But they're really serious investigations have shown it. All right, let me read to you what I said. I'm going to read Julianne's reply first, okay, to this situation. She basically says, and her what she is at on X is at kind and true, if you'd like to go take a look at that. So she's replying to me and she says, it is ultimate stupidity to put women in combat. Well, hold on a second. Let me check something else here. Maybe what I should do is go back and read what I had put down here. Okay, the IDF came out. I'm going to show this picture to you. The IDF came out with a picture showing how important it is for them to have women in the military. And yet, here's what they say. This is the IDF talking, and it says, violence against all women should always be condemned, full stop. No excuses, no ifs, no buts. And they're talking about, supposedly, they're saying that women are being sexually abused in the military. Duh. What about the enemy doing it? But they're saying that they have to protect women at all times, under all circumstances. That's what they say. And this is my response to them. This is to the IDF. I say, then stop putting your women in the military. Nations that put their women in harm's way are not worth defending. How many times have you heard me say that? Your politically correct BS is, again, evidence you are not Torah observant, are not a nation formed by God, and are constantly engaged in lies and blasphemy. That was what I wrote. And then Julianne responded to that with this. It's the ultimate stupidity to put young women in combat. I would say any woman. It's a no-brainer that they'll be assaulted and abused if caught, not to mention all of the other problems associated with it. Okay? All right. And in response to her post, this is what I wrote. And it was kind of a lengthy one, okay? I abhor it. I could enumerate many things why, but in today's degenerate culture, it would fall on deaf ears. In other words, the PC people. Oh no, we gotta have equal rights, and women can do everything men can do, and they should, and all that nonsense. In Israel, so this is what we're going to talk about. I'm not going to talk about the way it's done in the United States, even though I find that evil as well, or any country, Russia included. In Israel, however, the supposed chosen of God, despite the story of Deborah, which is not an exception. A lot of people will say that, well, that was an exception who argue the same way I argue about women not being in the military. But the reason why I said it's not an exception is because the whole situation was about the cowardice of the men, number one. And Deborah, basically all she did was explain how the thing was going to go down to protect the people. It was during the time of the judges. So it's not really even an exception to the rule of women not being in the military. Okay, it's not even an exception to that. There was another one where they try to prove it by saying, well, what about Yale? That's in another book. Let me see if I can remember where that is. I think I've got that written down here. Yale in Judges 4-5, where she entices this enemy commander, king, whatever, in, and then she basically kills him. That kind of a thing. That's still not putting women on the front lines, etc. It's still not putting the military units. And then they'll refer to, well, remember the siege of Jerusalem? Women were on the bulwarks there throwing rocks down. Yeah, but they shouldn't have been. They should have been placed in protection. And I'll show you why here. It's another reason why the temple and Jerusalem was destroyed in 70 AD, because of some of these other violations which I'm going to talk about. So, Torah is again violated under, let me read that again. In Israel, however, the supposed chosen of God, Torah is again violated. Torah forbids women, again, I'm answering the IDF and the rabbis and the leaders there in Israel based upon their own claims, okay? That's what I'm doing. So don't try to get around me on this. We're talking about what they claim to be and what they don't do if they actually are claiming to be who they say they are. Torah forbids women from wearing men's clothes. What are combat uniforms, by and large? It used to be they had separate uniforms for women and men. But even in that, the point is they're wearing men's clothing, and it's forbidden by Torah. If you want to know where that is, it is. I got this prepared, and I didn't put it on my X posts. It's in Deuteronomy 22:5. Okay, if you want to look that up. So, Torah forbids women from wearing men's clothing. That's in Deuteronomy 22:5. Women are not counted, only the men, for the military. That is in Numbers 1:2-3, which means that the women aren't military. Okay? They just aren't. Newly married men are not permitted to go into battle for a full year after marriage in order to take care of their bride. This means the absence of any similar requirement for women again shows they are not to be in the military. That's number 3. That's they're supposed to stay at home for 1 year, and the women aren't given that requirement because they don't go in the military. They're forbidden to be in the military. Deuteronomy 24:5. And then we'll go here. Women are to stay at home and care for the family, married or not. That is in Deuteronomy 3:19-20. And I'm just giving you a couple of the references just to make my point, okay? Men are to protect and provide for women. That's in Genesis 3. Remember when it said, God's talking to Eve, and he says, and thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee. Well, that's not like, dictating and being nasty and doing whatever you want with her. The concept of rule, the word in Hebrew is mashal. And basically it means, you take care of the person. In other words, if you have rule over somebody, if you have dominion over somebody, you must protect and defend and take care of them. Okay? So a better meaning of rule would be to take care of, to protect and defend, that you have a responsibility to the people, right? I could go on, I say here. This whole subject shows again the modern state of Israel is not ancient Israel redivivus and actually defies Torah. And I've talked before on a number of other issues where they defy Torah, which proves they're not who they say they are. And one other point I must make. The matter further dilutes the male-female relationship and edges again towards the push we see to androgyny and Baphomet Moloch worship. When men in the Old Testament are told to gird their loins for battle, it essentially means put on a jock strap. Again, we're not talking about women. That certainly does not apply to women. Shame on you, IDF, Netanyahu, Chief Rabbi, and any and all others who refuse to repent. That's just a taste, okay? Let me see here. I had one other thing. There was another example where in 1 Samuel 18, 6-7, and I'm giving you these references, and like I said, I could do a whole dissertation on this. 1 Samuel 18, 6-7, it shows that the women didn't go out to battle. No, they came out and celebrated the soldiers, the men, returning. The story of Deborah is in Judges 4, 8-9. Look at that. It's not like she's in the military. It really was because of men's cowardice. Now, if the Israelis want to admit that, all the men are cowardly, okay, do that. Do that. Let's hear you say that. And even then, it's not justified. Deborah was one example. And if you read that story, you'll understand what really happened there. It's not really an exception even in that case. Okay, let me see if there's anything else here I want to bring up. No, I think that's probably it. I felt like I needed to come on and do this just real quick this morning. I'm not going to take much more of your time. It's already been almost a half an hour. And I'm sorry, you women, AW, I was a very successful Army officer, probably better than I was. I was successful in a lot of ways, but I was lackluster basically, and it's because I had all these other thoughts about what we were really doing in the world and some other things. But anyway, you say, but my petite body developed a rare hernia, not diagnosed for 8 years. I will spare you my medical history. No, I understand. All these things can happen to men too, but women are not made for this. They're made to be loving companions to men, whether you like me to say that or not, and they're made to have children. Okay? I hear all this lamentation about, the birth rates are falling. Yeah. Oh, but the Muslims are continuing to grow. Gee, what do we do about it? What do we do? They're going to take over the world with their birth rates. Well, I'll tell you what to do. Look at what I did and maybe reconsider your prudish ideas about sex and about what women are really supposed to do. And stop all this nonsense of going out and being like men are trying to be. We've destroyed ourselves. And now we're being, in the United States and in Europe and other places, we're being inundated with people that are not in our culture. I like being able to travel the world and experience other cultures, but I like my culture and I want it to stay the way it is. I don't want to be forced to have to go and take part in somebody else's culture on my own property, in my own country. If I want to experience that culture, I'll go there. Don't bring these people here. Oh, we will have to take care of refugees. Well, this whole thing has been engineered, and you know what I'm talking about. It's to take us down. We have millions now of military-age men in this country that are going to turn on us on a dime. In the United States, they're already doing it in Europe. It's inevitable. And our government is traitorous. I better control my temper. Man, you better protect your women and children. Now, does this preclude a woman from defending herself? No. Somebody enters her home, I hope she shoots their balls off. but they're not supposed to be placed deliberately in harm's way. To do that abrogates your responsibilities as a nation. I mean, what are you protecting? If you put your women, look what's happened to Ukraine. They've killed off all their young men, and now they're bringing women out there, even pregnant women. That's what a nation's designed to do, is to protect the women and children. And when they don't do that, or when they do it the way Ukraine's done it, which I think has been engineered to empty out Ukraine of white Christians, now it looks like not just males but females. There's another agenda going on there. I won't get into that. I want to stay just on the subject here. So again, I've sent this information to different rabbis, ministers. I hear. I won't even bother to name them here. Extolling the virtues of the new Israel that God has provided to the world. And if they just understood that the idea of taking over everything is as Jewish as it is Islamic. But they don't want to talk about that. Now, there are some military people that push going after the Islam first, and I can understand, you have the idea of objectives, right? And I've talked about this before, kind of in other terms. If you can't go after both, you take out, the Islamic problem first, and then you deal with the other. But I don't really think that's what's going on here. I think that there is a very biased, very ignorant, very dangerous support of that little nation there in the Middle East that is now mowing down unarmed men, women, and children, especially women and children, by the thousands. There's a problem with that country, and I don't care what anybody says, I'll say it. And the mindset of those who support this nonsense elsewhere in the world, including especially this country, which should know better. Do I get emotional? Do I get angry? Yes, I do. Okay, I've given you kind of a rundown real quick about the problems to show you why this isn't right, what's going on in Israel with putting women out there. One last thing I'll bring up is Gideon. Because I did this on here too. Let me grab it. I'll read it to you. If I can find it. Because the excuse right now is that, Israel, the population is so low that we can't get the people in the military that we need, so we have to use the women. Okay, that's the excuse that's used. Their population is so low that they can't defend themselves unless they bring women in. And I answer this too. Let me see if I can find it here. And I'll read it to you. I could just tell you, but I think I'll read it. Again, it's on my X line. You can go there and look at it. By the way, I've sent all this information to people like Glenn Beck, Tucker Carlson, Joe Rogan, even InfoWars, Speaker Mike Johnson, the GOP generally, the Democrats, other GOP members, other representatives, other senators. I've sent them all this information because I'm tired of the lies. And I'm tired of what they're doing to tear our families and our cultures apart. Okay, let me see here if I can find this. If they haven't taken it down. Oh, and that's another thing. As I already said, after I saw this thing with the female tank crews, I said, you call this a tank battle, IDF? You call this a tank battle where they're shooting into buildings and cars and people running around? That's a tank battle? A tank battle is when you're fighting other tanks, IDF. Jeez, I can't believe the propaganda and the CYA. All right, let me see if I can... I want to be able to read it just the way I said it. Sorry I'm holding you up here, but I do want to find this if I can. Well, this might take me a little longer than I thought. I'm having a hard time finding it. By the way, the Israelis have surrounded Netanyahu's residence by the thousands that are calling for his resignation. He's done. If you don't know about that, they're starting to find out what Netanyahu and the leaders and what the IDF and all of these and Mossad and all these have actually been up to and what they've done. It's really, really bad. Okay. Boy, I've done a lot. I've talked about Sitchin and all sorts of stuff. Uh, Rats. You've probably heard me say this before. It is now clear, at least to me, that the stand down by Israel on October 7th was not an intel failure, but part of the overall plan to proceed with taking more land and seizing the gas reserves off of Gaza and prepare to expand Israeli settlements. Right? And then I quote some other stuff there. Well, maybe I'm not going to be able to find this thing that I'm talking about. I thought I had it right here, and I can't seem to locate it. The idea of the river to the sea thing, that was actually started by the Israelis, who said that they want the greater Israel from the Nile to the Euphrates. That's really where it came from. It really didn't start with the Arabs. It really didn't. Okay, gee, I wonder where this is. This is why I should probably record so I don't hold you up on these things. They may have taken it down, actually. It wouldn't surprise me in the least. Let me see if I can find it here. They may have removed it. It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, I get censored and all that all the time, as you know. Again, I warn this propaganda with women showing these tank crews and women in the military and all that. They want your daughters. They want to sacrifice your daughters to Moloch and Baphomet. They do. That's where that leads to. Okay. See if I can find it here. I guess not. It looks like they probably removed it. I don't see it. So maybe if I ever find it again, I'll talk about it later, because it's apparently been taken out. And no, I'm not going to get into the chat today. I hope you all really don't mind. It's not something I feel like doing today, and you probably don't really want to do it either. Yeah, I can't find it. I bet you they did take it down because it was pretty. No, I finally found it. So here's the icing on the cake. All right. If Gideon, there's a situation in Judges where a man by the name of Gideon takes over the Israel army, and he brings in thousands of soldiers. Remember, I was just talking about Israel saying that their population is so low they have to put the women in the military. Listen to how I address this. If Gideon, you can look him up in Judges, if Gideon was told by God to reduce his army from the thousands he had down to hundreds, it was actually 300 as I recall, then the modern state of Israel, saying it needs women as soldiers because of the low population of Israel, then it admits it does not truly trust God and is a fraud. Let me read that again. If Gideon was told, let's see. I'm going to go back one more here. Sorry, I had to search for this. It kind of got hidden. Yeah, let me read these again. If Gideon was told by God to reduce his army from thousands down to hundreds, so that God would get the glory, not the men who were fighting. They were still required to fight. As a matter of fact, he sent thousands home because God said, I want to take credit for this, not you. Then the modern state of Israel, saying it needs women as soldiers because of the low population of Israel, then it admits it does not truly trust God and is a fraud. Again, any nation that puts its women in the military does not deserve to be defended. And one other point I must make. The matter further dilutes the male-female relationship, I said this before, and edges again toward the push we see to androgyny and Baphomet Moloch worship. And also, as I said, when the Bible tells the warriors to gird their loins, it's telling the men to basically pull up their clothing up around their genitals to protect them. You know, while you're in battle, it's not getting flopped around or chopped off. Sorry to be so descriptive, but that's the way it is. Okay, that's all I got for you today. This is evil. Do not, please do not. I wouldn't even let my sons go into the military right now. I really wouldn't, because of the evil. Remember, we're supposed to walk away from this evil, that we partake not in their plagues of Babylon. And they're all tables are full of vomit. And then I showed you where Jeremiah 8:8 says that even the scribes were lying in the scriptures. They've altered things. They've changed it. It became political, not about God. Okay? Just saying. Don't let any of your sons, daughters, wives, girlfriends get into the military. Please. You know, yeah, they're going to use their free agency, you know, their ability to make their own decision. But don't you encourage it. It's evil. It's evil to the core. I came down on Tulsi Gabbard some time ago because what she was doing was that she was pushing the idea of women in the military in a subtle way, and then got even more so. Well, now she's coming out and she's saying really vitriolic, disgusting things about what's happening in Israel, and she's supporting it. She's not who she says she is. And I've been concerned about her for a long time, but now I have no doubt that she was nothing. She is part of the WEF. I have no doubt now. She never really denied it. Not really. She never really went after them. There was one guy, I forget who it was, who the WEF claimed that he was part of them, and he sued them to take down his name because they lied. Well, she's done nothing about it. She's just verbally told people, well, I'm not really part of that. Really? She says a lot of good things. But underneath, what's her role? And I called this out some time ago. Her role is to make women want to be in the military because they want to destroy womanhood. It's part of Baphomet Moloch worship. That's all I got for you today. Hearing me rant and rave and get pretty emphatic. But, you know, we need to start taking these things seriously and really understand the terrible situation that we're in. Yeah, trust God, but I'll tell you something. You know, the way I see it, you know, if you're not doing all you can to do the right thing, God just may not help you the rest of the way. Out here. Oh. Situational awareness on high. Eyes on the horizon, ears to the ground. Prep, pray, and again, stay out of the way. Stay out of the way means don't partake in it. Stand in the holy place. The other night I explained the difference between the abomination of desolation in the past and what that would be today, and how we should react to it in what they call biblical exegesis. Go back and look at my last live stream when I did it from the Braza Grill, and you'll know what I'm talking about. All right, everybody out here, have a good Sunday. We'll see you next time.